Welcome to the Geekcentric podcast. Today we're discussing all the doom-scrolling news from the Marvel Studios Hall H Showcase at San Diego Comic-Con. So grab your favorite socks, geeks, because this is gonna be a good one.
Love ya. Get home safe, guys. Peace.
Hello, I'm J-Law, but you can call me Justin, and if you're joining us for the first time, well, we are Geekcentric, a podcast celebrating the world of movies, TV shows, toys, collectibles, gaming, and all things Geekcentric. Joining me for this week's fantastical discussion of all things marvelous, we have the comic-accurate honey badger, Nate Shelton, and the resident Marvel comic know-it-all, Mr. Darcy Hudson. How you both doing today?
Man, Excelsior, my dude. In the great words of the one and only Stan Lee. I think he said Excelsior, my dude, at one point. You know what I mean?
I don't know if my dude was ever something he signed off on. Maybe it was a verbal one. Maybe. I'll give you that.
Awesome. Well, there is so much to talk about for this week in Geek. With all the news of what's been coming out, I know there was a lot of different stuff from San Diego Comic-Con this year. This, though, feels like it was the biggest of all the things. But before we kind of get into talking about strictly the Marvel panel, was there anything from SDCC that sort of stood out to you that was revealed or shared with fans this past weekend that kind of is a standout?
I've been very busy this weekend, so aside from the big news from Marvel, of course, like you said, that was the biggest because that's the only thing that has come to my attention at least. But I'm sure Nate will have a few highlights for us that I can chime in on and check out later on.
You know, it's funny. I like yourself, I've also been keeping a little busy with some stuff, and we've got some other fun stuff that's out today on the podcast. But you know, I did see a really weird Hellboy trailer that came out apparently out of Comic-Con, and it looks really low budget and like horror filled, which looked really interesting. I think IGN had that up there, but I think the trailer that, you know, besides all the Marvel stuff that really hit for me was the Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power season 2, the big epic trailer that they put out. I'm looking forward to this season. I you know, we kind of had some qualms about season 1, and we talked you know, about how some of the pacing wasn't the best and how many characters they were introducing. I think they have a really big opportunity to really hammer that sort of stuff out in a season 2. Now that we've kind of got the groundwork laid out, they can scale it back, they can scale in, they can focus in on these various rings that are going out, and we get to see maybe a different side of Morphin Clark as Galadriel starting to sort of descend into some sort of madness. So I think that would be probably the only other big thing, unless I'm missing something. Justin, what did you catch anything?
I really enjoyed the Penguin trailer, the full trailer that was released. It looks exactly how you would hope. It's a continuation from the Batman. It's obviously online now, so you can go check it out. But I'm really excited for that show, just because again it spiritually is continuing the story of the Batman of Gotham from the perspective of Oswald Cobblepot. And I'm very interested in seeing that. I guess the other thing too is Alien Romulus. I'm very excited for that movie as an Aliens fan. I'm excited to see what's next for the franchise, especially under the new direction with Fede, and just what he's going to bring to it, given his track record being exclusively a horror film director. His iteration of Evil Dead is nightmare fueled. So you know, he went bold. He took some chances with that, and it definitely paid off. It changed the whole landscape of what Evil Dead is, and you know, it'll be interesting to see what he does with this one, and how he's able to kind of maybe push some boundaries, as it feels like it's very much a return to the sci-fi horror vibes of Aliens.
Yes. Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say, because I'm not a big fan of horror, but a good sci-fi story will hook me regardless if it's horror or not.
Right.
And that's Alien franchise has always done that for me. And watching this trailer, I am so terrified that I'm like I can't wait to see this movie, but because it feels like it is going to be hitting all those classic sci-fi notes with a lot of the same moments almost recreated from that first movie, just in like a much more scaled up and over the top way. But like, chills to watch it, but I can't wait. Like it's weird. It's a weird feeling to be excited for a horror movie because it doesn't happen frequently for me.
Yeah, me too.
And seeing some of the footage that came out of the convention floor, like seeing the animatronic face huggers running around, like that's very unsettling. And apparently everyone in the crowd got a face hugger mask that they got to take home. And I'm also I'm very much looking forward to getting a little bit, let's get more scary in our sci-fi. I'm down. I'm ready.
Yeah, let's go there. It's time to go there. So, okay, let's get into the topic of today's This Week in Geek.
It's all about the details.
All right. So this lovely outline of the panel comes courtesy of our friends at Disney Studios Canada, who sent out a press release. And it opens with Hall H was buzzing Saturday evening for Marvel Studios Hall H Showcase, bringing excited fans at San Diego Comic-Con a first look at what's next for the Marvel Cinematic Universe, including huge news about Marvel Studios' next two Avengers films. So obviously, if you're here, you're listening to this, you already know the news. But you know what? We're gonna take you through the journey of the experience of Hall H, and we're gonna get to that news at the end, rightfully so, just like Kevin Feige did, dropping bombs all over Hall H. The Hall H showcase kicked off with a celebration of Deadpool and Wolverine in theaters now, a full choir performance of Like a Prayer welcomed the excited crowd with dancing Deadpool variants, which ended when Marvel Studios producer and president Kevin Feige looked for Peter Pool amongst the variants, calling Rob Delaney, who stars in the film as Peter, to the stage. Delaney joined Feige as the showcase's MC, mentioning the surprise Deadpool and Wolverine screening for congoers on Thursday, and a massive drone and fireworks show over San Diego's Petco Park that followed. Deadpool and Wolverine has already broken box office records for an R-rated theatrical release, and the film's opening officially pushed the MCU over the $30 billion box office mark with 34 movies. Of course, we know this movie is starring Ryan Reynolds, Hugh Jackman. It's directed by Jackman. It's directed by Sean Levy. Deadpool and Wolverine is playing in theaters now. Before we move on, the news of how much money this goddamn movie made. Crazy. $405 million globally. And that is wild. That is I think it is now the single largest opening for an R-rated film on opening weekend. It takes the cake. Most of the, not by much, but like most of the money was global, with domestic still coming in very close to the global mark. I think it was like 205 versus 238 or something like that. It was ridiculous how much money this movie made. How many times did you guys see it this weekend?
I've seen it 3 times now. So
Wow.
I like the film.
I think you're winning then, because I think Justin and I have only seen the movie fully twice, but we have seen the first 40 minutes now roughly 3 times.
3 times, yeah.
So, but no,
first 10 minutes 4 times if you count.
That's true. Hey,
hiccup
you know what?
in the screening.
I was there for that.
Let's
too.
toss that in there. I think, I mean, that's absolutely bonkers numbers. Hearing 30 billion box office mark as well in terms of just the overall MCU is crazy cuckoo bananas, and it's just one of those things where it's like, so it's the highest grossing ever thing ever. That's wild. But the Petco fireworks drone show, Darcy, you and I were lucky enough to see a drone show done by Disney before in Paris, and to see what they were able to accomplish here just makes me feel like, okay, they're only going up from here, and maybe not something as big as that every night at a Disney theme park, but something close. I mean, come on.
Well, apparently that one that you referred to us seeing when we were in Disneyland Paris was only the precursor to the true show, which is almost twice as large as what we saw. So,
okay,
yeah, again, Disney and their nighttime spectaculars are just always going to be mind-boggling, and the fact that this is a Deadpool and Wolverine themed one just seems so cool. This is one of those instances that is very rare for me, but I'm like, damn, I wish I was there.
Yeah,
100%.
Yeah, I'm hoping they bring something like that to California for D23 this year. I think that'll be super cool. And yeah, I loved how it was, Deadpool and Wolverine themed. It had sort of a very like cartoony style to it, the way they look like when they're running or and stuff like that. But of course, it ended with Galactus and the Fantastic Four symbol, and Hall H Saturday is a reminder for everyone that, yeah, they were there Thursday at Hall H, but really, it's Saturday. I will say I was slightly disappointed in all of the press and people who decided to post a lot of stuff in relation to who showed up. We won't get into I think we'll probably get into maybe a bit of spoilers towards the end in regards to stuff that happened in Deadpool and Wolverine, but in regards to cameos and surprises, it just feels like it was too soon to do what they did at this juncture with the release of the movie. That said, I don't think that they're really concerned too much at this point too about the ruining it and the money it won't make if something like that happens. It's already made a boat ton of money, and I'm sure they felt very confident in kind of sharing with the fans in the Hall H. That definitely, it would be crazy to sit with, like, I think it's like 6,000 people in that hall that you're watching a movie with, and they're all freaking out if they're seeing it for the first time. Like, it'd be pretty wild.
It was such a cool thing to sort of see, and I can imagine for them to experience, and for Sean and Ryan and Hugh and Kevin to sort of be sitting in the audience and get to experience that with essentially a concert's worth of people all at once. The vibe must have been immaculate. But I agree with you. I think we might bring it up, but there are small recordings of some of the trailers that were shown, or footage that was shown, or pictures that were taken, and obviously their security is crazy, like really, really, they're very tight with that stuff normally. But to your point, I would have loved just for them to have sort of said, hey, we're about to, kind of bring some people up. Please, if you're an outlet or whatever, try not to post this. Let's keep things spoiler free for people. I think it would have really just been, even though people weren't going to listen and they would have done it anyways, I think it would have been far less. And I think a lot less people would have been spoiled on this movie that literally came out like that night. Like, I remember we got home from the theater and it was just all over Twitter, and I was just like, and not even to the point where it's like you scroll and swipe to see something. It was like just pictures were just being posted, and it's so unfortunate because these are major outlets that are doing this, and I've had friends reach out to me and say, like, I've been spoiled I haven't seen the movie yet, and I just got spoiled. So
yeah, and it's literally because they decided to take a moment and share in the excitement in Hall H. I understand the venue and the importance of it, but it just feels like sort of haphazard. And to your point, like, not at least issuing and saying, hey guys, like, we're gonna have some people come out, let's not record this, let's not post it. But as soon as one person does it, other people feel vindicated to do so, and it just goes down the rabbit hole of people posting. But I get it, I understand. I just think that even for Marvel, it's one thing when people want to spoil things. People will go into theaters and take pictures and then post it, and clips and videos from moments. That I'm totally against. It's one thing when, I guess, the studio is behind trying to figure out how to market and get excitement while also, very much spoiling parts of this movie. So I thought that was just an interesting choice. But that said, it's kind of a double-edged sword, I guess, when it comes to it. But after that, Feige kind of set the stage for the panel, said that they'll be talking about 3 movies. He lied, talked about 5 movies, but they really did go into 3 movies. And the first up was Captain America Brave New World, with Sam Wilson about to make his big screen debut as Captain America in Captain America Brave New World. Delaney welcomed to the stage Cap himself, Anthony Mackie. Joining them were Tim Blake Nelson, Danny Ramirez, and Giancarlo Esposito, who confirmed he is playing Sidewinder. And more on that in a sec. Together, they revealed exclusive footage, and much to the crowd's excitement, invited Harrison Ford to take to the stage. Ford makes his Marvel Cinematic Universe debut as President Thaddeus Ross. The story follows Sam Wilson, who, after meeting with newly elected President Thaddeus Ross, finds himself in the middle of an international incident. Sam must discover the reason behind a nefarious global plot before the true mastermind has the entire world seeing red. Marvel Studios' Captain America Brave New World opens in theaters February 14th, 2025. Little Cole's notes. Obviously, there's not too much in this from Disney about what footage was shown, but it seemed like it was the scene from the trailer where Isaiah attacks the president, leading into that. In that, they did confirm the island of, I'm going to butcher the name, Tiamat.
Yep.
Tiamat.
Yeah, Tiamat.
Island of Tiamat.
Celestial Island, I think is
Celestial
what they was
Island of Tiamat, is going to contain adamantium. They got a really good look at the Red Hulk, who basically hulked out, as Mr. President hulked out at the president podium while delivering a speech, and then apparently continued.
That's a picture.
That is a picture, which is wild. But yeah, this is the sort of stuff that they saw. I'm interested in this movie because there's a lot of talk too about trying to keep it very Winter Soldier. Do you think it can do that?
Yeah, I mean, I totally see there being a potential for that. Again, with this whole allusion to the true mastermind behind the wings, because while Sidewinder is a potential threat all on his own, and again, in the comic books, he's kind of a corporation created villain essentially, and eventually goes off to join the Serpent Society on his own or form it in one instance. So it's weird because the Serpent Society is just a bunch of snake themed villains.
Yeah,
so
it's a little hokey, but I think
they're very hokey, and they're always Captain America has a lot of snake themed villains. When I was going through it, there's almost every other one in this Marvel catalog fights Captain America at some point, which is weird. But that's the Serpent Society. So that is cool, and there's potential to have some cool powers and everything like that. But I think the true thing is who is creating the Red Hulk in this instance, and how is he coming about? So that whole intrigue, I think, can lead to the Winter Soldier level, feels where you're trying to figure out what side you're on and who to believe type thing.
Yeah, I was surprised that they are leaning into Serpent Society again. I guess not surprised, but again, given what they exist in the comic books, they're kind of hokey, right? They're costume team. I think
they're very
Nate, in Invincible, there is a group that is very much
they're
emulated.
A parody
of Serpent Society.
Yeah,
and I could see Serpent Society though if again this is the avenue in which they kind of go more gritty, more real, more political thriller vibe, being sort of like a pseudo blacklist organization, not too indifferent to something like the Thunderbolts, that is just filled with ex-military people that are skilled in a very specific way. There was a lot shot with wrestler Seth Rollins, apparently. Seth Rollins, my apologies, and it's been cut. But I'd like the running theory is that at some point he may make an appearance, or who was his character, because he might have been the king of the Serpent Society, but then they decided to make a change and throw Giancarlo Esposito into that role. We don't know. There might still be a place for Seth in this, but it's all very interesting given the fact that you pointed out, just the etiquette or the style of the Serpent Society, kind of, where do they fit into this all?
Well, I think with Giancarlo Esposito is so good on screen. He's got the capability of being such a good bad guy, and I think
all the time.
I think
that's all he plays.
And I think to the idea though that there's this sort of more hokey, cartoony, comic booky side of Serpent Society. I think it'll be more along the lines of, sure, it's just they're called the Serpent Society, and it's just a code name, and they're more secret agent based. One thing that I am intrigued by and a little worried with this movie, and I know that this movie has had a few sort of hiccups here and there with the production, but just has to do with the idea of like, how many villains and how many avenues are we going to explore with this movie? Will it feel a little too overstuffed, in the sense that we've got, Red Hulk confirmed. We've got Giancarlo as Sidewinder. And then we're also going to have Tim Blake Nelson kind of, maybe he's a little more behind the scenes, and he's a little bit more. He is the leader, yeah. And so
no, but my apologies. I think he is the bad guy that's orchestrating all of this,
right.
So I'm wondering if his role, the reason why he's been, because even a lot of people said they didn't get a good look at the leader, they didn't get
right.
It was more behind the head shots and stuff like that. So I'm wondering if he is the ultimate baddie, and that everything else that we're seeing is kind of pawns on the chessboard for him to kind of play with.
For sure.
I totally think that's the route they're going to be going, because again, the leader is the smartest man with the gamma like radiated brain type thing. So for him to be in charge of all this from the shadows, it would be pulling that Winter Soldier spy thriller vibe, I think. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Yeah,
just in the idea that he's, like, again, but I guess the only thing that I was saying was I'm just a little bit worried that, are we gonna see one of these three pushed to the background? And I guess if any of them, to your point, if it is Samuel Stearns pushed back a little bit, it'll feel like maybe a little bit more setup for future storylines with him, and so that they can really focus on Giancarlo being that sort of mid-level, and then Red Hulk feeling like the big bad, like you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's that asterisks we still don't know anything about. So
yes, we will.
Asterisk.
We'll talk about that in a sec. But yeah, I think that there's a lot going on. This, and the hiccups that you mentioned. There's been a lot of reshoots. Clearly, a recasting with Giancarlo Esposito, or casting, whatever you want to call it. We don't know if he's replacing someone or if he's an entirely like new cast for this story, based on the angle that they're kind of pushing it. But yeah, it's great. Like, a lot of people obviously had theories running that Giancarlo was going to play George Washington Bridge from, I believe it's X-Force, worked with Cable and so on and so forth, which was a very interesting theory. But Sidewinder and Serpent Society does make far more sense, even as we were mentioning, as hokey as it is. But yeah, there's a lot going on by the looks of it. So I hope it does, to your point, Nate, flounder. It doesn't flounder with the importance of the villains and the roles that they play. I could see the President Thaddeus Ross as the Red Hulk kind of being sort of the element, but not the bad guy, just sort of the muscle of the bad guys.
The issue or the weapon being wielded by the bad guys.
Exactly. Yeah. Yes, exactly. Weaponized by the bad guys. And I think in some ways we'll find out how Serpent Society ties in with what the leader's doing, and if the two have been sort of fueling, basically if they plotted to kind of get Thaddeus this Red Hulk serum and beef him up for their own purposes.
Well, I will say I was really delighted to see the just the level of enthusiam that Harrison Ford has for this role. Seeing him
hulked out on stage,
and seeing him just seeing the faces that he was making, and he, it's just so funny because it's like, maybe the guy just hates Star Wars at this point. That's what it is, and then he's having so much more fun in this role with Marvel. Obviously, he respects Star Wars, but it's just sort of, I always think of him as this sort of like grumpy old, like, oh, I don't care about Hulk and Red Hulks and all this stuff, and just
I wonder,
see him sort of having a blast on stage was awesome.
Yeah, I wonder though if it's more around like he doesn't hate Star Wars, but the role of Han Solo didn't really challenge him. He's just himself, like, you know what I mean? Like at least with Indy, there's a little more of a challenge because he's doing more stunt work and there's more of this adventure quality to him, and that's synonymous to who Harrison Ford is. But I wonder if Han Solo just wasn't enough of a challenge, and because he got so much praise, he kind of got a little disdain to it, where he was just like, I don't know why so many people like me in that movie. I'm not really doing anything, right? Whereas
I'm
like
not acting, I'm just being me.
exactly, and now here he is like fully convulsing and hulking out on the stage, and I apparently in the discussion that was happening on stage, that he does mention, you know, doing the mocap and it being him. So I wonder if we got a little taste of what they were like. Okay, now you're gonna Hulk out, and then he's just like freaking out on stage with mocap, and then they just, you know, they obviously CGI it in. So, but yeah, okay. Well, that was the first movie that they discussed, and then they moved quickly on to another sort of, I guess you could say it's a politically thriller-inspired movie, and that is the Thunderbolts. Highlighting Marvel Studios' Thunderbolts, Delaney welcomed director Jake Schreier to the stage alongside stars Geraldine Viswanathan, Lewis Pullman, Hannah John Kamen, Wyatt Russell, Julia Louis-Dreyfus, Florence Pugh, Sebastian Stan, and David Harbour. The film also stars Olga Kurylenko, plays Taskmaster. She wasn't in attendance for the event, but she's also starring in the movie as one of the Thunderbolts. David Harbour was in full Red Guardian garb, earning laughs and applause from the crowd, which was treated to a scene from the movie. There wasn't that much that was really kind of revealed, only that the premise that has been kind of floating around is that, sorry, one sec here. What's his name? Lewis Pullman is playing Sentry, who is captured, and that each of these, Thunderbolts, if you will, Florence Pugh's character, Sebastian Stan, all of them are being sent to break out Lewis Pullman, but there's sort of a trap that's involved around it. So there's a bit of an espionage vibe that people are getting from the footage that feels very very suited for a Thunderbolt story, and I also think very suited in terms of where we're coming from in terms of like Captain America: Brave New World. Like, if this is the movie that's going to follow it up, it feels like it's going to stay coherently in the same vibe. There was a little bit of a log line that they added here. Marvel Studios and a crew of indie veterans who definitely sold out present Thunderbolts, a irreverent team-up featuring depressed assassin Yelena Belova alongside the MCU's least anticipated band of misfits. Marvel Studios' Thunderbolts opens in theaters on May 2nd, 2025. That feels very similar to something that like the Deadpool synopsis that was written, where it was like from his mind. It feels like someone like Val would have written something like this as the synopsis for this movie. But yeah, what do you guys think? Are you guys vibing for this movie? I know we didn't really get to see much, but what do you think? Are you excited?
I think it's the fact that I'm recognizing now that Jake Schreier is directing it. Worked on Beef. Which when we think about, storylines that have conflicting characters, and this very much, and I've been hearing some of the stars in interviews talk about how this is going to be a journey with a bunch of characters that really don't want to be together, forced to be together to achieve some sort of common
Suicide
goal.
Squad.
Sure. But I think this is going to be maybe a little less
better
villainy, and maybe I think it has the chance to be pretty fun. I also like the idea that Jake Schreier also worked on Kidding, which is a series with Jim Carrey that was canceled way too early, in my opinion. And that's one of those shows that it is funny, but it also has the ability to go to those places that get really, sad and upsetting and make you feel the feels. And so I'm looking forward to seeing that. I love the idea that, we've got Yelena as well as Red Guardian sort of getting to see they were probably my favorite parts of the Black Widow movie, and so to see them interacting again, and the idea that she's a depressed assassin is going to be interesting. It's going to be really intriguing to sort of see. I love Florence Pugh, and I think honestly, all this has to do is it has to be fun. It has to be a fun time at the theaters, and I don't think it needs to go too deep into the political sort of route, because we've already we'll have already been doing that with Captain America.
Yeah, for sure. Thunderbolts, and even in the comics, are never like these super intense or deep storylines. It is a lot of those, like very much a Suicide Squad, but more, mercenary based and villain. So that's where it's not like these guys are all more from a gray area than the true dark side. So that's why it's so much fun to see them rise to be the hero in some of these moments. And the fact that we got the reveal that the confirmation that Sentry will be playing a part in the storyline is incredibly exciting for me as a comic book fan, because he is essentially like Superman with the most fragile mental state you can imagine.
Yeah.
So at the drop of a hat, he could go from being the world's greatest hero to the world's greatest villain. And just the fact that they're going to try to break him out. Clearly, Val wants to add a powerhouse to her team, and this is obviously going to backfire in some way. And that asterisk, the fact that we still haven't found out what that's about. Like, if the leader's in the background for Brave New World, what if this is just another one of his little plots?
100%. I think
get more, stuff for his arsenal or whatever.
Yeah, I think it feels like there's some importance to it following up from Captain America: Brave New World. Again, staying in that sort of political thriller vibe, and to the point of what you're saying, Nate, it doesn't need to continue the political story. It can go a little different after it's now established the political climate of what's going on, and then how the Thunderbolts kind of fit into this world at this point. And also, we don't know, actually. Like, again, everything seems to be all over the place in terms of timeline. This could happen before the events of Captain America, or I would imagine that it happens after. But again, I digress. We'll see what happens. But I wanted to add a caveat. I had a Cole's note here in regards to Lewis Pullman's character, who was never referred to as Sentry, even though everyone thinks it's Sentry and everyone pretty much behind the scenes knows it. They just called him Bob, and he's bulletproof, and it's like, okay, so we're not going to get the full confirmation as of yet that he is playing Sentry, but it does feel like, from a lot of discussion behind the scenes, and given the fact that Steven Yeun was originally casted for the role and he said it was Sentry, again, they just haven't leaned into confirming it. It's all like very unconfirmed at this point. But that said, I think it's going to be interesting to see how he plays a part into this. And I've heard that it's sort of a trap that's been planned, and that they realize that when they've been all sent there individually, not as a team, but as individuals to go try to break this guy out of whatever penitentiary he's in, they realize that they're in a trap, that someone set them up. And that's the interesting part. It'll be, I wonder if it's Val testing them.
Intriguing. I think that makes a lot of sense for her to sort of be at the center of everything. And I'm reading online that Bob is short for Robert Reynolds. It's funny that we've been talking about Ryan Reynolds for so long this past week, but yeah, apparently trailer footage shows Bob with very sort of messed up looking hair. He's all grungy, he's all grubby looking. So him being sort of like the thing that they all have to sort of figure out, and maybe he is sort of maybe the kind of the big bad of this. I think part of my thought process of him being maybe the central villain or the central foil in this has a lot to do with the Walmart looking hat on Kevin Feige's head, but it's the asterisk, but it's in bullets, but it very much does look like the Walmart logo. But the idea that, like, literally what you just said there of like he's bulletproof. I think that's kind of where we're going with this. And I think, again, I think it's going to be a really, just have us have a really fun time. We don't need a ton of big surprises. It doesn't need, it can also be more of a contained story, kind of Marvel movie. And I'd be totally fine with that. So, I'm very much looking forward to it. And I think Lewis Pullman is a cool addition to this cast if we couldn't get Steven
Bill
Yeun.
Pullman, right? So I think he's the son of Bill Pullman, if I'm not mistaken, who is from Independence Day. So he looks like him. It's crazy. But yeah, the only thing I wonder, and maybe this is a question for you, Darcy, how can he exist in the MCU? Like, where does he come from? Is he a mutant? Is he otherworldly, or is he a product of some sort of experiment?
I'm pretty sure it's otherworldly in origins. To be completely honest, I jumped onto that character's story well after he was established, so his origins were never really explained. He's just explained to be this, again, great potential threat or ally, depending on when you catch him type thing. So he's a very interesting character, again, with the whole mental issues he goes through and how that ties into his powers and his power state and all that stuff. So it'll be interesting to see how they handle that if it is the Sentry indeed. So
Right.
I'm looking forward to it. I mean, you say bulletproof, there's only so many people in the Marvel universe that is the
Right.
first thing you describe
Exactly.
him as, and Sentry is, again, that superhero Superman style character.
Exactly.
So
he's been labeled as, the MCU's Superman to a certain degree. I see, Nate, you're doing some reading. Are you doing some?
I was just looking. I
Googling?
see some Wikipedia, talking about the fact that he's middle-aged, apparently, and overweight in certain storylines. That he also has teamed up with Mr. Fantastic as well as the rest of the Fantastic Four. So that could be intriguing, especially knowing where we're going with not only this conversation but in the MCU. And yeah, there's definitely been some storylines with Doctor Strange. So it's interesting to sort of see, and I'm seeing multiple pictures here. And Darcy, maybe you might know a little bit more on this, but like one picture is him, and he looks like me when I lift my hands too high and my shirt goes up my belly, and then there's another one where he looks completely ripped and jacked. So I don't know if that's something to do with his powers or what have you, but
yeah, again, it's all about his powers and his belief in himself and everything like that. His whole mental state is directly tied to how his powers are.
I think it's Fat
expressed.
Thor, man.
Oh yeah,
Fat Thor was a product of his depression, right?
Okay.
So
This guy's more just like more leaning towards the bipolar side of things,
Sure.
where he has violent mood swings, and that's what kind of will affect why he's a threat or why he's an ally type thing.
Interesting.
Interesting. Well, speaking of potential Fantastic Four crossover, let's get to movie number 3 for 2025. Feige returned to the stage to share details on the upcoming Fantastic Four, which kicks off production Tuesday, so tomorrow at the time of this recording. Joining Feige on stage was director Matt Shakman and Marvel's first family together on stage for the first time. Pedro Pascal, Reed Richards, Mr. Fantastic, Vanessa Kirby, who plays Sue Storm, the Invisible Woman, Joseph Quinn, Johnny Storm, the Human Torch, and Eben Moss Bacharach, who's Ben Grimm, Thing. They all shared some cosmic details about the upcoming feature film that sees Galactus and Silver Surfer target Earth for destruction, and revealed the movie's full title, The Fantastic Four: First Steps. But then Hall H was overtaken by none other than the Fantastic Car, soaring over the crowd, drawing massive cheers as the screens were taken over by a retro-futuristic vision of New York City featuring music by Oscar-winning composer Michael Giacchino. Marvel Studios' Fantastic Four: First Steps hits theaters on July 25th, 2025. There was also footage for this that was shown. A lot of people say that this was the highlight of all the footage that was shown because it was the first look at the cast together. There was a silhouetted shot of Thing. There is a big push for the space vibes, hence even just the idea of the subtitle being First Steps. And them being very much a family and seeing them in their full costumes, and shot on 16 mil 4x3, really getting a retro vibe. People even were talking about hearing Pedro Pascal's voice for Reed Richards that is charming and unique. One person described it, and I think it was actually Eric Voss, who described it as very Professor Frink, but not as annoying and high pitch. And he says he's digging it. So I'll take his word for it until I can hear it myself. But it's interesting that there's a sort of character that's coming to Reed Richards. I don't know. Maybe I'm. I would like to see a character, but I don't know if I need to have it so like it lived in his voice, if you will. But I guess we'll see. We'll see how it looks. But they did see their first look at Galactus, which I'm sure you could find that online. There's someone who made a GIF of it that was pretty cool. It was cool to see it.
Yeah, and the whole thing about Reed Richards being like that whole characterization of him being really nerdy is that is who he is, especially in later years. Like he only had a few friends, and that became his family. And outside of that, people don't understand him because he is so analytical and scientific about his approach to everything. So he's not the warmest character. So him coming off as being this, like even through down to his voice, as being very, intelligence driven, I think it'll be refreshing to see after the few readers we've seen before, where they really try to humanize him, and it's like he's not a human, he's just a living computer. That's Reed Richards. He can stretch and he's a computer. That's all you need to know.
Interesting.
And Pedro Pascal is going to bring that charm. That guy is charming as all get out.
Well, yeah, I don't doubt that there's going to be a sense of charmingness that exudes from this character, because it looks like he's really enveloping himself into the role.
Yeah. I also enjoyed seeing the Fantastic Car. There was some footage that came out of them showing the Fantastic Car coming in. Supposedly, a colleague of ours was saying that the cast was supposed to be in the Fantastic Car at some point, either coming on or off the stage, but that didn't quite work out. But
I wouldn't trust that.
No,
I would not trust that.
Your whole cast.
You're about
gone.
to shoot on Tuesday, and you're going to put them in a floating car that, by all intents and purposes, like, it looked worrisome.
Yeah.
I was like, yo, these people are right above this thing. If something breaks, and if they're all dead, like it's going to hurt them, impale them in some way. But yeah, I don't know if I would trust putting all four of them in there. Sorry.
But apparently they played sort of the theme music for First Steps, which I'm going to assume was probably the same theme music that we heard at the end of that drone show. That the music that when they showed the Fantastic Four logo played, which was really cool because listening back to it wasn't anything that I can think of that we've heard before. And Michael Giacchino, I mean, come on, shout out to Michael Giacchino always. He's the creator of the fandom, like the Marvel fanfare music. He's the guy. And so it's going to be so cool to have him on this. I think Matt Shackman, kind of taking lead on this movie is going to be really, really cool. Obviously his prior Marvel work speaks for itself, but I think there's so many interviews, and he talks about his love. I mean, what he did with WandaVision, but his love of, classic TV land television, growing up watching not necessarily obviously the original runs of those shows, but the celebrated anniversary or reruns of those shows. And so to kind of, I heard that there was some stuff shown of like a dating show at some point, and it's sort of
that was in the footage.
Yeah.
It was all just like, and that's the thing that's really interesting about the footage. It, like, people were blown away at how much was actually shot.
Yeah,
because they have been in London preparing, and it is to be assumed that some of this was just Shackman taking a 16 mil, running around shooting some behind the scenes while also shooting some sort of test footage and cutting together very much a flavor reel of what this movie's going to look like and feel like. And yeah, you're absolutely right. Like, by all accounts, everyone's saying like the vibe of it is so retro. It feels like in the spirit of what was so well done in WandaVision, but on a whole new level.
Yeah.
And I think, giving him a budget that is going to probably be, anywhere between 180 to 200 million to do this movie, to do it right, he's going to set the precedence of what it is. Again, we now know as well too that this story does not take place in the 616 universe. It is another timeline that is adjacent or parallel to that of 616, yet to be seen, of course. But the fact that they're removing the Fantastic Four, or they're putting the Fantastic Four in another universe that isn't 616, again, that sets precedence to where we're going, right? Where we're going to end up at the end of all of this. But yeah, those were the three movies that were discussed. A lot of interviews online, like you said, Nate, because they did do some press after. I have to say, Pedro Pascal and Vanessa Kirby, just in their interviews, are like the chemistry is palpable.
Yeah,
I think that there's some serious I wouldn't be surprised if an actual relationship blossoms
Oh.
from this. I'm gonna say it. It looks like they got eyes for each other.
They're
So,
taking their first
unless-
steps. You know what I'm saying?
There you go, right? And they might do it throughout this entire movie making process, and then right into the tour of the global press tour, which will definitely be huge next year.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was the 3 movies, or was it?
What?
Because just when audiences thought the show was over, Feige told them he had an Avengers update to share. And let's just get right to it. Anthony and Joe Russo, renowned directors of 4 of the most successful Marvel movies, and the studio's highest grossing directors with over $6 billion. So $6 billion, I imagine, of the $30 billion.
Yeah.
So that's a good chunk.
Yeah.
$6 billion in global earnings are set to return for Marvel Studios to helm Avengers: Secret Wars in May 2027 and Avengers: Doomsday in May 2026. The reveal of Avengers: Doomsday left one major question: who would play Doctor Doom? The directors pointed out that Doctor Doom is one of the most complex characters in the Marvel Universe and needed a truly great actor to bring him to life. As Feige and the Russos prepared to close out the presentation, robed figures dressed in Doctor Doom masks took to the stage and then parted to reveal Robert Downey Jr., who is set to return to the MCU. Hall H was on fire. They erupted. Like, phones were, like, sound and audio was just unaudible. Everyone was chanting RDJ. The Russo company, Agbo, is set to produce both films alongside Marvel Studios, which is going to give Agbo some much-earned injection of money.
Yeah.
And they confirmed, actually, Stephen McFeely, known for his work on Captain America, the Captain America trilogy, and Avengers Endgame, will handle the script for both of these films.
Perfect.
He's without his partner Christopher Marcus, who was definitely a part of Infinity War as well as Endgame. But I don't know, Stephen McFeely, giving him the opportunity to take a crack at this. I guess that low-key means means that Michael Waldron is no longer going to be writing, I imagine, what would have been Kang's Dynasty or Secret Wars. I wonder if he's going to be working in some sort of executive producer capacity, because I imagine whatever work he has done will probably be continued. The Russos did say, being able to create stories and explore characters within the Marvel Universe fulfilled a lifelong dream of ours, and we discovered a powerful connection with audiences in each film that we made. We're thrilled to collaborate once again with Kevin, Lou, and the entire Marvel team to bring this epic adventure in storytelling to new and surprising places, both for both the fans and ourselves. Okay, so this is obviously the biggest highlight of the news. It's not even the Russos coming back. It's the fact that they got Robert Downey Jr. to come back and play, and as they said in this presentation, Victor Von Doom. So I'm very intrigued as to how this is going to be a thing. I have my own theories. I know Nate has his theories, and I'm gonna actually just throw it to you first, Darcy, and to kind of maybe get us into a place of like, how can they make this possible? As our resident Marvel comic book know-it-all, I will also preface there could be spoilers for Deadpool and Wolverine at this point if we're talking about anything theory-based in relation to that. So you're forewarned on that. But Darcy, please, how is this possible? Can they do this?
Well, first off, I'm still kind of skeptical about it. Like, I'm excited to see him back, but at the same time, I'm not sure if it's gonna be worth it. Like, can he pull off the same character development we got with Iron Man? Like, that was one of the greatest stories we got throughout the MCU, and it ended so perfectly. And for him to come back to this character, I really hope that it's just as fulfilling in terms of how much we get from it.
You said this character. Is he coming back to Tony Stark, or is he coming back as Victor Von Doom, who looks like Tony Stark?
So the whole thing is like, the looking alike is not an issue to me at all. I mean, we've seen multiple times now different actors playing the same character and or the same actor playing different characters, especially with Fantastic Four and Chris Evans before he was Captain America.
Right.
So like the fact that it's Fantastic Four, it's even more just he can look the same, but it's a different character.
Sure.
So he's Victor Von Doom. And the fact that they've already established that Fantastic Four takes place in a separate universe, it is completely okay with me. How he comes into the main MCU and how that'll be affected is interesting, especially with where they're going with this character and having Secret Wars being the end of this character's story, at least as far as we know for now, and how his role in that is pulling everything together and making the universe and holding it together as it goes forward, kind of almost taking over for Loki or Loki's position at this point. So I don't know. It's really interesting too, because in the comics at one point recently, I say recently, probably in the last 10 years, he did take a spell as the superior Iron Man, where he was in an Iron Man suit doing good. And the fact that he has Tony Stark's face, I see him coming over this other universe and maybe taking that chance to fulfill the legacy of this lost person while writing his name, or maybe doing nefarious goods with Tony's face. I don't know. It's just, I'm on the fence. I feel like the Russos would have been enough for me to be stoked for what's going to come. Bringing RDJ has now made me a bit more skeptical about how they're going to handle the character.
Yeah, I will say it's definitely a divide, right, between fans. Like, I think some people that are very aware of the way procedural things work see this as more of a cash grab, to be completely transparent, right? The idea that, there's been some misses. It's one thing to bring back the directors to say, hey, can you give us the same sort of epic conclusion to this, 10-year movie set, but in a 5-year window with a Doomsday and a Secret Wars. But, now you're bringing back the character that basically started it all, or you're bringing back the face of the character that started it all, and who basically is synonymous with the character of Tony Stark, who basically, when you look at RDJ, you think Tony Stark. He basically is that character. You are bringing him and you're going to make him Victor Von Doom. It doesn't make a lot of sense. There's half of me that's like, I don't understand it. There's half of me that says it could be kind of perfect given what we've seen of the character in past films, where he does kind of border sort of over the top. He could go villain, right? I posted that in a group chat. I posted a gif of Armor Around the World, that quote that he said, the whole idea of what he was trying to do in Age of Ultron, and the circumstances of events that happened after that, leading to him feeling the necessity to sacrifice himself in Endgame. So again, it's like I don't necessarily know how it will all work. But Nate, why don't I throw it to you? What's your theory about how this is all going to fit into place?
It's tricky. I mean, I think it's as we were saying, it's there could be some light spoiling of some Deadpool and Wolverine stuff. So again, there's your second warning to go see that.
Here's your third warning. There's going to be spoilers for Deadpool and Wolverine in Nate's discussion.
Here's your fourth warning. Here's your fantastic fourth warning. No, I think the addition of Deadpool and Thor showing up in the TVA in that movie, and that's where Thor holds me. And the fact that we saw specifically Jonathan Hickman's Secret Wars #5 on the ground in the void next to Deadpool laying there, which is, I've not read that series, but it's apparently that's the introduction of Doctor Doom into that Secret Wars series, is awesome. That is so cool, because it tells us that this is the direction that they've had at least since that trailer came out, or at least since the production of that movie. So I think we could very much see Doom, or at least this version of Robert Downey Jr.'s Victor Von Doom, where he comes from the 1960s along with the Fantastic Four. I think he'll be the sort of big end tag, because I do think Galactus is going to be the main villain in Fantastic Four First Steps, and then 100%. RDJ might be, or Doom, not even, I think Mask on Doom will sort of be there. I think one of the things that I was kind of like looking at was the ending of Deadpool and Wolverine, the outcome of that, and obviously the multiverse has dealt with incursions and talked about and brought up the idea of incursions. So the idea of 1005, which is the Fox universe, I guess, or the Deadpool universe, and then 616 colliding as something to sort of give Doctor Doom something to sort of maybe try to prevent. Maybe he's aware of that potentially happening, And maybe he feels as though, or he's aware that he needs to end up in 616 at some point, but maybe he doesn't know why he needs to end up there, but he knows that he needs to go there, and he knows that he needs to stop this incursion before something horrible happens.
I love where you're going with that, but I'm thinking a slightly different thing. I've had this idea with the way that Deadpool and Wolverine ended, and they talk about how the timeline is regenerating, and I feel whatever Wolverine and Deadpool did is going to be very interesting to Doom if he wants to pull these pieces of these universes together to after these incursions happen. Because again, that is Secret Wars, where all these incursions are happening and the heroes can't do anything to stop it. So Doom's only choice is to take all these pieces and slam them together in one universe, where one world is the Thor core, and they're the cops of the universe, and they just fly around the planet, and there's a bunch of different Thors, and then there's the beyond the wall, there's all the zombies and all this stuff. So like all these universes get slammed together, and then what comes out of that is the new MCU or whatever going forward. So it'd be really cool if that's the direction they go with that, where Wolverine, whatever they did, is addressed, because I think that is the big takeaway from that film.
Well, I like that idea, and I think with the way that he gets from Fantastic Four, obviously, I think Galactus, I think he's going to be maybe, we sort of get a picture or a light idea of what he's trying to do, but he's stopped because of Galactus, and they both need to escape that either that timeline or that universe. Again, Marvel keeps going back and forth with talking about timelines and universes, but the idea that they both need to escape, and that's really how both of them end up in both Avengers movies, because I definitely think the idea of Doomsday specifically being the subtitle, I think it's very specific, and I think that there is going to be a very specific day that Victor is concerned with, and that is really what's going to kind of come to a head in Doomsday, and then he obviously isn't successful leading into the next Avengers movie, so into Secret Wars. So I think that could be really intriguing. The only other thing that I was wondering, and I don't know what you guys think about this, but the multiple Dooms on stage, I get that it was like a big reveal, like we're using this to sort of put a crowd around Robert Downey Jr. Is there any possibility that we could be getting multiple Dooms similar to maybe Marvel's plans that they had for multiple Kangs?
No. 100% no. Doom is known for using Doombots, which are just robot versions or sentries of himself in his likeness.
Even cooler then.
So
sure.
Again, with
robot
RDJ,
versions.
That's another thing with the RDJ coming in and playing this character who wears a suit of armor and has drones made in his likeness type thing. It's just like there's too many parallels.
There's so many parallels.
Doom and Iron Man.
That's
it's
the
just
thing.
to replace magic with science, and you've got the same
really
character
cool.
basically. So
and he still is smart. So my theory running into this is like, the Deadpool Wolverine stuff from Universe 10005. Like, I think that's doing its thing. I think the point there, like you said, again, spoilers, but the fact that Wolverine was seen as a anchor character, or Logan was, he dies. Deadpool brings in a new anchor, being another Wolverine, to kind of circumvent a timed issue going on with that timeline, suddenly saves it and regenerates it, which I think proves to the point, adds to the theory of how anchor points can be replaced. And as long as they're serving the point or serving a purpose within that timeline. Again, more needs to be elaborated on it, but enough is there, I think, to create some interesting theories. But 10005 is happening over here with Wolverine and Deadpool. We know that Monica Rambeau is in some other timeline or universe as well
with the X-Men.
With the X-Men, is that 10005? We don't know. It could be.
Again, we could see this easily be answered with like the fallout of Deadpool and Wolverine being explained as these two worlds that were separate have now kind of merged into one, and that's where we get
the first incursion,
X-Men, and the first incursion that didn't result in the destruction
or second,
of two planets,
or
second or whatever. But if it's the first instance of two universes coming together, I think that would be, again, with where Secret Wars, the storyline goes, and how Doom pulls everything together with the power of a god, this could be the inspiration for him to do that, where there is a way to coexist, if you will, and again, survive the end of the universe as these incursions kind of lead towards. So
and my theory though about RDJ as Victor Von Doom is he is the Tony Stark, but Victor Von Doom of his universe. He's the same, exactly like you said. He has all of the same sort of status and obviously different demeanor and different character. But the way that Tony Stark was looked at in 616 is how Victor Von Doom is looked at in his world, in his universe, and that he is very much he is the Tony Stark.
It'd be interesting if first steps are that instance where, like, Tony had the potential to go to villainy, but Doom fully falls into it, and that's where he becomes the Doctor Doom that we all know.
Yeah, and I think again, like this is really going to ride on RDJ delivering a holistically different performance from that of Tony Stark. Like the amount of balls and confidence that he has to say, yeah, I'm going to come in, I'm going to do a whole new character. But also we don't know.
Then he puts on Tony Stark glasses after he takes off the mask.
It was so,
like,
and he did the pose.
Tony Stark glasses.
He did the pose with the hands out. The first time we see Tony in 2008 in the movie in the desert when he's blowing up shit with his missiles. He knew what he was doing. He knew exactly what he was doing with that. New mask, same task. Again, the Russos echoed that same sentiment again on stage. So I think that's going to have a big sort of play. But you can already see or imagine what some of these confrontations might look like in a Secret Wars when our 616 are confronted by Doom, who looks like the person that helped build their Avengers team and build the heroes in their world, Tony Stark. I think the character that's going to have the most, and obviously the internet is faster at this thought process than I am, but Spider-Man and Tom Holland Spider-Man, the father figure, that is going to be an intense moment. And thinking about that almost gives enough justification for them to do this and to make him the villain and to give that, give him that opportunity, given also the fact of how much Tony was so was like on guard with whatever massive threat was going to come back after the events in New York from Avengers 1. He was always prepared, and that's sort of where he got into that psycho mentality of with Age of Ultron and wanting to protect the heroes and make sure that we shouldn't have to do this. Like, why don't we build something that can do it? All of that's there for a very interesting iteration of Victor Von Doom. But you guys are pointing it out as well. Like, where do we see him get introduced? I was wondering if he's named or referenced in Fantastic Four, but we never see him because something happened to him, like something space, timey, windy sort of thing that has happened that has now allowed him to go far beyond, and that the Doom that we see in Doomsday is more of a origin story for the character that RDJ is playing, the Victor Von Doom version that he's playing, that would then end with obviously a huge glow up that's going to be like, holy shit, Secret Wars is going to be huge, and we're going to see pockets of each of the universes in Doomsday. We're going to see everything kind of, the board, if you will, of pieces that he's going to be playing with in Doomsday, setting up for Secret Wars. And after that, we got to get out of this fucking multiversal shit. Like, let's just smash everything together. Like, there is a joke in Deadpool and Wolverine. We've done the multiversal thing, and it's a bit much. It's worked. And I think if we think about the multiversal storyline, there's probably like one decent, I guess, like storyline, and that is Loki. I think Loki's is the strongest and is the most satisfying. I think Deadpool and Wolverine pulls in for a strong.
I think No Way
second.
Home as well.
Yeah, I guess you know what? Yeah, absolutely. No Way Home is definitely another one as well, especially given the fact of how they use those heroes. In the story of it, it didn't. Again, we've talked about this. It didn't feel like fan service as much as it felt super important to the story, even though it was a lot of fan service. But yeah, I think that we need to get out of this multiversal nonsense. Everything just needs to mush into one, and like, let's get new X-Men, let's get new Fantastic Four, and give us a new Victor Von Doom. Maybe then the Fantastic Four do stick around, but after being in a Fantastic Four movie and then 2 Avengers movies, they're probably bound to do another 2 Fantastic Four movies. I don't know what their contract is. That means like they're signed for like 5 movies.
I mean,
so
if I was any one of them, I wouldn't. I don't know if I would mind that too much for all that.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Cash.
It just sure,
but
definitely.
But I think what I'm, before, you're saying we gotta get out of the multiverse. Before we do, though, I do want to say, I am really looking forward to Secret Wars. And the more and more we talk about it, it's. I gotta read. I just have to sit down and I gotta read them.
You
should read that
even
book.
all the
Yes.
tie-ins. The tie-ins.
You
are
read
so
books
good
all the
too.
time,
Well,
bro. You should read
and
that
I think
one.
too with Adam Barnhart at comicbook.com put up a really cool write-up with Joe Russo, who was quoted and I'll read the quote here, but he says, I read that when I was 10 or 11, talking about Secret Wars, and it was the scale of getting all of the heroes together. It was one of the first major books to do that. That was really event storytelling to me at its finest. And what happens when you put all those personalities together, Joe Russo explains. I also like the idea of villains having to team up with heroes, and the complicated relationships between heroes and villains. And so I think, and he goes on to talk about how the scale of something like Infinity War was directly related to the dream of Secret Wars, which is even larger in scale. But I love the idea of villain hero team ups. I think I think we talk a lot about the villain problem within Marvel movies. It comes up quite a bit, and so the idea of sort of giving Marvel, some of these Marvel villains, a bit more of their due, I think would be really, really cool, and to sort of see them come together with some really, like, I remember in What If when we had Hela and Wenwu, that was so cool, or like Zemo, kind of getting a little more time with him in Falcon and Winter Soldier was awesome. So I think like a Gore the God Butcher and Doctor Strange, or like an Ultron and Peter Parker, I think, especially given their connection to Tony Stark and with everything going on with this RDJ thing, like, I think it would be really, really cool, and it would be really fun to get to explore those throughout Secret Wars. And I'm hoping, a lot of what I'm describing sounds, and I just talked about the idea that Captain America might be a little overstuffed. It sounds like I'm like dreaming for like a super overstuffed movie. I think the idea is
for
that
Secret Wars 1, 2, and 3.
Sure, give us
together.
part 1, part 2, part 3. No, but I do think that it would be cool though if we can maybe get through some of the animated stuff, maybe within What If or what have you, some more of these team ups that directly impact something along the lines of Secret Wars. So if it's not just that movie, but other additional sort of side things that are going on that can work within the canon, I think it'd be really, really fun for them to at least take their time to explore Secret Wars. Because again, from everything I've read about it and everything, Darcy, you've talked about, it sounds like it's the biggest Marvel thing ever, and I just don't want them to rush through it.
Oh yes, and I talk about the two interchangeably, because the one that Russo's talking about is the original Secret Wars, where Peter Parker first puts on the black suit, and it's not quite this incursion level stuff. There is a threat on the world that the heroes and villains band together to fight together. But in the newer one is where Doctor Doom plays a hand in pulling these universes together. So if we're going to be able to see something on the scale of both those, epic interstellar multiversal stories, then it's going to be, if it's done well, it's going to be just like Endgame, but on steroids, basically. So I hope they pull it off.
Yeah, only time will tell. And, we got to wait till 2026 to see Doomsday, and then 2027 for Secret Wars. So there's a lot that's going to happen. There were no other movie announcements. There was no announcements about Blade or what's going on. Obviously, that's kind of in a production limbo state. But do you guys think that 2026 and 2027 will only have one Marvel movie, or are we bound to see like at least 2 per year? Like I
feel like we might see some more. It's just they don't want to have to do like what they're doing with the Thunderbolts and the Asterisk, where they're holding back part of that title. I think they're going to wait for some stuff to settle and then reveal maybe a larger scope, maybe a Fantastic Four will fit between the 2 Avengers movies or something like that.
Well, they have slated so the first 3. So again, the 3 movies that we talked about are all that they presented are all coming out in 2025. They're locked in for 2025. If we'll get, are you saying if we get a second Fantastic Four in
Yes.
between in between Doomsday and Secret Wars?
Potentially
Is
that, or just maybe they're introducing another character. Maybe that's when they'll choose to do a Nova movie, because that's been in the talks for a while. But I'm trying to think along the lines of what they did between Infinity War and Endgame, where they introduced Ant-Man, or did Ant-Man and the Wasp, where that kind of led into what would come next. So if they do something similar with like a Nova, like maybe someone is
What about Doctor Strange 3?
the Doomsday. Or maybe even a Doctor Strange 3. Like, who knows? Like, that could be...
Like, I wonder if Shang-Chi 2 and Doctor Strange 3 are going to be slated for either a 2026 and 2027, just to kind of either, lead into or beef up, right? Like, I'm not sure.
Be a prequel to an interlude or whatever it is for this story that's going on, like to see where they were or what leads them to this next movie, I think would be cool. Because, again, that Ant-Man and Wasp thing with him... with him coming out, that would being the big thing, like, oh my God, he's gonna be the key type thing. If we get something like that in the post Doomsday after if he's won, because if we're gonna follow the similar structure to the first, like Infinity War and Endgame, he wins and Secret Wars will be the heroes taking back what was lost type thing. So I don't know. I don't see them going only one movie each year, but if they do, then that means those movies are going to be freaking solid.
Well, yeah, because I just asked because obviously, Marvel Studios is only having one movie this year, and it's already made them a whole bunch of bank, right? So it's like, I don't like, again, the only reason they would theoretically need to put another movie in 2026, maybe another 2 in 2026 and another 2 in 2027 is to just kind of beef up and maybe to the point of what you were mentioning before, Nate, they're not, they're kind of filling in as sort of pseudo stories leading into the, the big event of Secret Wars, because, doing a lot of different things in that movie might make it feel overstuffed.
I'm also wondering, too, if their answer to maybe getting past kind of, because they've got a lot of stuff in the works, right? And a lot of that is going to be on Disney Plus. So I'm wondering if we might even see one of these, even originally a theatrical release production, maybe moved over to something like either a Disney Plus series or a Disney Plus movie release.
Well, Armor Wars is doing the reverse. It was supposed to be a series, and now it's a movie.
But I'm almost wondering if that is something that they say you can watch the movie when it releases on Disney Plus. You know what I mean? Which it might be an interesting strategy for them to take, and also for them to sort of navigate around the concepts of the Marvel fatigue that has plagued them over the past few years, right?
I think the way to, like, personally, I see where you're coming from, but I personally think the way to navigate the fatigue is to really draw, like, what they're trying to do, draw a hard line between different production pillars, television, animation, and studios being movie, and studios being kind of all encompassing of all of it. But, like, what is happening on TV and animation can or may influence what's happening in the movies. But in the movies, it's obviously more. I think they're in the business of making a lot of money in the theaters, and I think the only way they can really keep doing that is probably strategizing less is more. Not necessarily having to do like 3 or 4. Like the fact that like, one movie this year, next year for 2025, we have Brave New World, we have Thunderbolts, and we have Fantastic Four, right? And then who knows what 2026 is going to bring outside of Avengers, Doomsday, and 2027. So only time will tell. I am, needless to say though, I am excited. The internet was like on fire yesterday. Just everyone was freaking out about this
green fire,
and and it's crazy all the different angles of it actually being revealed.
Him taking the mask off,
pretty crazy. Yeah, pretty crazy. So, yep, we got some time before the next couple of Avengers films, but needless to say, we're very excited. But that is it for this special This Week in Geeks episode. We hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, feel free to subscribe to us wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you want to reach out to us, let us know your thoughts, your theories about some of these movies, and maybe how RDJ is going to be Victor Von Doom in another universe. Well, you can reach out to us at wearegeekcentric@gmail.com. That's wearegeekcentric@gmail.com. Or you can hit us up on Twitter at GeekcentricYT or on Instagram at wearegeekcentric. Keep in mind, we have a ton of other great episodes out now for you to enjoy. We've already mentioned it. We do have a spoiler-free review for Marvel Studios' Deadpool and Wolverine, out now. We will have a spoiler-filled later this week, where we do discuss a lot more than outside of what we just talked about in this episode. But yeah, maybe you have seen the movie and you want to hear some of our thoughts on some of the characters. Nate, Darcy, and Kevin did a great job breaking it all down and staying entirely spoiler-free in regards to that. We also have a ton of interviews and stuff on social in and around that movie. Nate and I, we were fortunate enough to go to the red carpet event in Toronto and chat with Ryan Reynolds, Hugh Jackman, and director Sean Levy on the red carpet, which was a wild time. And Nate had the opportunity to sit down with Peter Poole, or Rob Delaney, as many would call him, and executive producer Wendy Jacobson from Marvel Studios' Deadpool and Wolverine. So a lot of interviews, a lot of stuff. The interviews are available on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/geekcentric, as well as on podcast feeds. But all of our red carpet coverage is available on our Instagram at We Are Geekcentric and our TikTok at We Are Geekcentric as well. We also have a new interview today with the executive producer, co-creator, and showrunner of Futurama, David X. Cohen. The X is for mutant.
For Xavier.
Xavier. Nate sits down with him to talk about the upcoming season 12 of Futurama, which is hitting Disney Plus in Canada, and I believe it's Hulu in the States. But yeah, they have a great conversation. Nate shares his lack of knowledge of all things Futurama, but they share in some geekiness, and it's actually a really fun conversation. So go check that out. That's available strictly on podcast feeds because it was an audio only interview. So yes, we have it available on podcast feeds for you as of right now. Yeah, as of right now. It's
depending on what timeline you're on. If this is the 616. Or is it 10?
Or if it's 105 or 10005. Yeah, I'm not sure
anymore.
But that's it. We hope you enjoyed it. So until next time, Nate, Darcy, thank you for joining me for this Week in Geek episode. And as we say,
love ya.
Laters.
Peace.